The Coch-y-Bonddu is an old Welsh fly. It was described by Charles Boker in The Art of Angling in 1792. Mary Orvis Marbury wrote about it also in 1892 in her Favorite Flies and Their Histories. This fly is a beetle imitation, perhaps one of 1,000 beetle species, aquatic beetle species, although certainly not in its original Welsh form was it an American or North American beetle. Mary Orvis' father, Charles Orvis, illustrated this fly for her book, and I am tying this fly off of that illustration. I'm tying it on a number 14 hook. This happens to be a 1X short nymph hook. I'm using red thread because the illustration has a red head, but it also has a black tag. So I've just tied in a 3/0 silk thread, which I am using for the tag, and just tie that off and clip it out. I will be putting a rib on the fly according to the illustration by Charles Orvis. I'm using a 0.2 millimeter gold wire. There is indication from the early use of this fly that it was tied with a gold rib, although most of the current patterns today don't have it ribbed. So a gold rib, the body, I will be using 3 Peacock herl to create a fairly full body on it. And then I'm not doing a rope or glue or anything else with this herl because I am going to be putting that wire rib over the top of it. So I'll wrap that herl. I guess if I leave my thread up here at the middle of the hook, then that'll help keep the herl together as I wrap it. Just need to make sure that I leave enough room for my front hackle. I'll tie off that herl. And then wrap it with the gold wire in spiraling wraps. Catch in the wire. And then I'll just put a little bit of tension on the thread. Wiggle that wire back and forth, a little bit of helicoptering, and break it off. I'm aware that I am not using the original Coch-y-Bonddu feather. In its original, it was a particular feather that was also called the Coch-y-Bonddu. It was a feather that came from roosters only, and it was a red, I guess this is sort of red, this is really more tan brown, but red with a black around the outside and a black down the middle of the feather. Today it's hard to find a feather like that. This is really kind of the opposite of that. I've got, well, the feather that I'm using is more brown than these, but these you can see have a brown outside or red outside, black and then a red middle. So this is exactly the opposite of what the traditional Coch-y-Bonddu feather would have looked like. But good luck finding that. I don't notice that any of our feather people are actually creating or growing, at least not here in the United States. And of course, if you know better and have a source for Coch-y-Bonddu feathers, or feathers that are black on the edges and in the middle with a brown or red, I'd be happy to be corrected. So this is a wet fly tied in what we would now call a soft hackle wet fly fashion. So just winding that, pulling back on the fibers as I wind. I'm going to have to try to pull back others here as I catch in my stem. So I just push back on all of those. There's one more in there, see if I can get it. All right. And then wrap back up over that stem to create the red head that's in the illustration by Charles Orvis. I think this stem is fine enough there to just snap it out. I'll put a whip finish on it. And then a drop of head cement. The head cement that I'm using is diluted goop, which comes actually in a tube. Stick a needle in my bottle, drop that onto the head, and it soaks right in nicely. And then that'll dry clear. Color will be back to the original color, but it doesn't get hard. It's kind of more of a gum kind of a glue. So a Coch-y-Bonddu, according to the illustration in Favorite Flies and Their Histories, illustrated by Charles Orvis, written by Mary Orvis Marbury, published in 1892.